Good evening. My name is Wendy Blackwell, and I would like to share a brief talk with you about conflict mitigation strategies. First, let's quickly discuss the laws that guide conflict mitigation. HIPAA, FERPA, Title IX, Clery Act, Good Samaritan, and in some cases, search and seizure. The Family Education Rights and Privacy Act protects students' rights to privacy, granting students the right to review and inspect their records. They're afforded the right to ask for a request for information with a 45-day window for response. It also allows a student the right to amend an inaccurate record or a misleading record and request the amendment. It provides students the right to give consent to share personally identifiable information. This is very important for students who enter college under the age of majority. And it protects their right information that may be disclosed without consent if it's shared for an educational interest. It affords a right for due process, and it makes provision for formal complaint, and it safeguards a student's medical privacy as well. And in many colleges, it provides the option to opt out of directory information. The next law is the HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And an easy way to know what this act does is these 5 things. You can get information, you can check your health information, you can know who has access to your health information record. This law provides a safeguard to protect it, and it allows a request for reasonable changes in how you communicate using your medical record. The next one is Title IX, which protects students against discrimination based on sex or gender, and it protects against sexual harassment, sexual assault, intimate partner violence, and sex or gender-based discrimination. Some colleges founded on religious doctrines refuse federal funds so that they do not have to adhere to Title IX protections. It's very important to watch this conversation now going on in the Supreme Court, because Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, and Idaho, along with the Louisiana Department of Education and Kentucky and 6 other states, are asking to opt out of Title IX and some of the sexual protections. The Department of Justice has asked the Supreme Court to partially restore the Title IX rule in the Republican-led states. So this is a hotly debated topic because some of the religious schools who the religious foundation does not believe in the differences in sexual identity, don't want to be led by Title IX. So very important to watch. Next is the Clery Act, which is the clear disclosure of campus security policy and campus crime statistics, which requires that colleges that receive federal funding must be transparent about certain crimes, including crimes of sexual violence, must be responsible for publishing an annual security report, and must maintain a detailed, accessible public crime log. And crime statistics must include incidents that occur on, around, and in cases of off-campus. Colleges must provide timely warnings and have an emergency response system, as well as protect the identity of victims. The Clery Center has a very interesting website with lots of resources on the website, including how to make a detailed annual report and how to respond to a crisis plan with the delineation suggested. The next law is the Good Samaritan law, which describes the ethical responsibility for the expectation to act out of concern for others without fear of retribution for doing so. So, for instance, if someone has a drug overdose, you should call 911 and get that person help, and know that you will not be charged as an accessory in their illness. In addition to the laws I've described, there's also search and seizure, which is an individual policy that's described by campuses, especially those that have a no alcohol policy. So those policies talk about whether or not alcohol is allowed or drugs are allowed on the campus, and what the search and seizure policies are. And some other policies that are very important to know are the behavioral health intervention policies and the student code of conduct that goes along with these others. And then the code of conduct, the ethical response to a crisis. Every college and university has written protocols and procedures to respond to medical emergencies, mental health emergencies, sexual assault, student arrest, student death, suicide ideation, and suicide attempt. These protocols describe how to activate emergency services, the chain of command, behavioral health, threat assessments, referrals, and follow-up. It is critical that every member of the student affairs team, including RAs, know how and when to respond. The crisis management will lead responses as they are notified. However, RAs are the first line of defense, and they must be trained and knowledgeable about the protocols, how and when to respond, what information they can legally share, and with whom. Next is cross-functional teams. The role of the crisis management cross-functional team is threefold: to prevent crisis, prepare for a crisis, and respond to a crisis. This team works best when they're led by someone who can delegate, who can assign roles, and who knows how to follow up. The responsibility of the team is to create the crisis management plan, practice implementation regularly, and update plans as information becomes available. For instance, the university breaks ground on a new building on campus. The crisis management team should convene immediately to discuss what should happen during the construction if a road is closed and there's a need to have emergency vehicles on campus. The crisis team should include a number of key players who can be called upon depending on the crisis: a media coordinator, safety coordinator, community liaison, legal counsel, Title IX counsel, team crisis coordinator. And the legal counsel is very important because this person may take over instead of the communications liaison, especially in cases of suicide. There should be a myriad of communication crisis event scripts ready that will be used for notifying students, parents, and local community, local law enforcement, responding to social media, contacting next of kin, and convening the media. This management team is also responsible for risk assessment, response procedures, training, and testing. And training and testing is the most important part because in order to be ready, you have to stay ready and understand how different scenarios can evolve. Debriefing and updating the plan, and then follow-up procedures in a crisis. These plans should delineate how to follow up with mental health practitioners, providing spaces for students for impromptu memorial services, for instance, and some campus protocols, including things like how long the memorial should stay up, whether or not students who committed suicide should be in yearbooks, what should students do to remember certain things a year later. Some teams may also include additional members of support with specific crisis roles. For instance, if the emergency also includes technology, there might be a technology liaison or an architect or a facility person. Standard operating protocols for student affairs should be guided by the American Bar Association model for rules of professional conduct. And this means that during a crisis event, it's appropriate for legal counsel to lead the public-facing communication to ensure that no statements are made that could harm the university later. The Code of Model Behavior cautions the lawyer not to make any extrajudicial statements that the lawyer knows or should know that could be disseminated by means of public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the proceeding. The Code of Conduct also states what is appropriate to say. And those statements include information that's included in the public record. An investigation is a matter in progress, and they can provide a warning if there's danger that a person involved could cause some harm some other time. The identity, residence, family status of the accused, information necessary to add in the apprehension of the person, the fact of the arrest, the identity of the agency and the arresting officer, public statements to rebut misinformation. Thank you for your time.